One of the scenes in The Last Jedi that gets the most hate is this one. Now, I've heard two reasons for why this scene is so disliked. One, because by saving him, she ruins his selfless sacrifice and destroys a beautiful character arc where he went from being only out for himself to deeply caring about not just Rey, but the entire Resistance. And secondly, this scene is hated because of the line, "This is how we'll win, not fighting what we hate, saving what we love." Which at first glance seems idiotic and contradictory because by not allowing Finn to fight what they hate, she likely doomed what they love.
General Hux, advance. No quarter. No prisoners.
If Finn had been allowed to crash into the cannon as it was about to fire, it likely would have destroyed it. Which would have left the entire Resistance safe and sound in the mine. However, I think the meaning of this scene is being misinterpreted, and that Rose was actually right. Now, first off, I want to acknowledge that this scene failed. It was not good. What I want to look at, though, is why it failed, especially when the idea behind it was solid. Paige sacrificed herself to save the Resistance, and the audience is meant to cheer this moment of sacrifice for the greater good. Holdo sacrificed herself to save the Resistance, and the audience is meant to cheer this moment of sacrifice for the greater good. Finn attempts to sacrifice himself to save the Resistance, and the audience is told we shouldn't fight what we hate.
How can this be for the greater good? Shut it!
So why were these first two sacrifices noble, but Finn's isn't? Well, I think the problem boils down to Kelly was just given a stupid line of dialogue. Look again at her line, and let's rewrite it to say what the writers actually wanted her to say. It isn't worth winning if we lose ourselves in hate and can't save who we love. She isn't saying they shouldn't hate the First Order, that they shouldn't fight the First Order. She is saying that it's not worth fighting if Finn is going to die. Because Rose no longer cares the most about the Resistance. Rose has fallen in love with Finn. Granted, she's only actually known him for like half a day, so let's say she's somewhere between heavily infatuated and honestly in love with Finn. This piece of knowledge gives an entirely different context to this scene, especially when you realize the dialogue was just poorly written to convey the intended message. This war isn't worth winning without you. And ironically, this theme is extremely prevalent when it comes to war. Most people aren't fighting for an ambiguous entity like the Republic or the Resistance, they're fighting for someone special. Han wasn't there for the rebellion, he was there for Luke and Leia. Cage wasn't fighting to save the world, he had fallen in love with Rita. Brian wasn't trying to save every girl or to break up the sex trafficking ring, he was only trying to save his daughter. Look at any war movie or talk to real-life soldiers, they've got pictures of their wives or girlfriends or children that they carry with them. Most of them are not fighting for the United States or for democracy or because it's morally right. They're fighting to protect someone.
I don't know anything about Ryan. I don't care. Man means nothing to me. It's just a name. But if going to Ramel and finding him so he can go home, if that earns me the right to get back to my wife, well then that's my mission.
This is why Rose was right. No war is fought because the soldiers...
Not fighting what we hate.
Wars are fought because the soldiers are...
Saving what we love.
Now, yes, sacrificing a single life to end a war is obviously worth it, but never to the person who values that life. His son would never have willingly let his dad die, even if it meant saving the world. Brian would never have left his daughter behind, even if it meant rescuing hundreds of other girls. People who love someone can't make the logical decision to let them die for the greater good. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen my other videos and know I'm not a fan of the sequels. Yes, we could tear apart nearly every scene in this film and find something wrong with it. But at the same time, we must acknowledge the things they did well. Just like the prequels, this scene suffered mainly due to terrible dialogue, but the meaning behind it was beautiful because it shows what they're fighting for. Because love is worth fighting for. Because every life is worth fighting for.
Human progress isn't measured by industry. It's measured by the value you place on a life. An unimportant life. A life without privilege. The boy who died on the river, that boy's value is your value. That's what defines an age. That's what defines a species.
And as a final note, even though I'm condoning the message behind this scene, I'm not condoning the scene itself. It was poorly written and poorly directed, and the beautiful meaning it could have had was lost. Just like in my last film, where I showed the meaning Lucas tried to convey but failed to with all of these different fight scenes, this scene could have been good, but was not, purely through the failure of the director. So just like with many scenes throughout the sequel trilogy, we have to look at the meaning that they wanted to give us, instead of what they actually showed on film. I'm going to be covering several other scenes where we look at the intention that they had, which was completely different than what they actually filmed. The sequel trilogy is failing because the writers and directors have good meaning that they fail to convey properly on film. Rose was awesome. The failure here was him.